Here we go. Good morning again. This is September in our 5th year of School of Life, and this is the 5th year, so it's been going for 4 years. And I can hardly believe that. I always like to start with a little bit of kind of context and reminding everybody why we're here and why we're doing what we're doing. I started doing School of Life because I had a great idea. And I love just communicating with people. But the biggest reason was that I've been a therapist for off and on really for almost 30 years. And there's a lot of stuff you learn when you're in people's lives and when you're trying to figure out how to get better and when you're in your own process trying to get better from whatever is wrong, which is kind of funny because some of us don't ever want to be right. So we just are addicted to being wrong all the time. So we have this endless self-improvement idea. But anyway, it makes for a lot of exploration of the human condition and what works, what doesn't work. And I've done a lot of trial and error and a lot of thinking and studying and a lot of working with people. And I've been burned out a few times. I would say 3 times. And every time it's around this issue. Why is life so hard? Why is change so hard? And how can we do it better or easier? And so I learned a lot of things along the way. But when I'm sitting in a room with someone, they're here really to talk. They're not there for me to talk so much. And so anything that I might know or any insight I might have, I kind of just try to sneak in for here and there. But it does, there's not a lot of airtime. So it just accumulates in there. And I was getting to the point where I felt like I'm like staggering under this whole weight of things I wish I could share with people just en masse. And so School of Life was kind of just a natural outgrowth of that desire to just sort of express it all. I also joke that the reason I was, many pounds overweight was because of all that wisdom and knowledge I was just holding on to. And it was a weight loss program. So you can see it's working. It's working. And if I ever get really thin, we're done, I guess. I don't know.
The work is finished.
Yeah, my work here's done. So I guess the reason I wanted to say that is that I want to talk today about how to be present. And I don't want to do so much talking about it as actually practicing it. So at least by 10:10, we're going to start practicing. But I really want to remind us all why we're here and what it's about so that we can bypass all the little voices that might be saying, now what is that again? And how does that work again? And I sure wish I knew what it was. And I'm not sure I really want to do that if I really believe in that, and all those little voices. Sometimes I like to, they're the gatekeepers, so I like to kind of give them a little something to chew on so we can shift gears. And sometimes I don't end up shifting very well. So because the topic really, I think I came up with some sort of smart-ass title, like There's No There or something, or 50 Ways to Practice Presence. I've been thinking a lot about presence with a C. And if you know me, if you've been around School of Life very long, you realize I don't really ever have a plan or a curriculum. It kind of just emerges from either what people really want to hear or what's rumbling around in me. And so presence has really been one of those things in the back of my mind for the last couple of weeks. Thinking about how important it is and how not unique it is, but what a phenomenon it is to be present, and how in some ways hard it is, and how sneaky it is, and how resistant we can be to it, actually. So, hi. Welcome. Come on in. So, but in order to get to how to be present, how to practice presence, I want to talk a little bit about where the whole concept comes from, and that is one of the core reasons why I started doing School of Life is because I discovered the gospel of mindfulness, and I'm here to share with you the gospel of mindfulness. So it's really interesting because I don't even know when it was that I went to a conference. It was about the psychology of mindfulness and using mindfulness practices for, in use with psychotherapy and the psychology of it and the brain science behind it and all of that stuff. I was in the throes of, or just barely recovering from, the worst case of burnout, depression, faith deconstruction, life transition that I'd ever been in. And I really had wanted to quit my job for the longest time. And had to stay because, can't just quit your job. But I was completely burned out and completely empty and really tired, not just of not seeing other people change, but really more inside myself, feeling like the more I knew, the more I was making myself sick and the more hopeless I was becoming in terms of what I wanted for myself and what just didn't seem possible. But it was always out there, like the carrot, on the stick, always chasing something. And here's a new this, and here's a new that, and here's some big insight we can do here, or here's some excavation we could do of your childhood there, and all these hidden layers we could possibly do, and blah, 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 blah. And I just was chasing all of it and really was losing hope that I was going to ever get better. And with the burnout and all these other transitions that were happening inside of me, I just thought, I'm practically done for here. So somewhere in the midst of that, and I don't even remember how or even what year it was. It might have been 2010, might have been 2011. Those were some of the bad years. It wasn't like I was in my worst state, but it was like over the worst of it, and kind of going, but not knowing what to do here. And went to a conference on mindfulness, I guess, and listened to a man named Dr. Dan Siegel, who is a psychiatrist, Harvard-trained psychiatrist, who started talking about, and he's not the first one, like it was just a whole bunch of people all at the same time, but he was one of the pioneers in the whole field of neuroplasticity. You've heard that word, neuroplasticity. That means, and this was a revolutionary concept. I had been taught that the brain forms and then it's like crystallizes and you're done. And the basic structures of the brain don't change, and so you're stuck with yourself. But that turns out that that's not true. Now that we can watch the brain in real time, and now that we can really have a lot of technology that really helps us understand these things and see these things, the truth is that we're making new neurons all the time, and our brain can be renewed, and we can actually, by simple practices, we can change the brain. And what I loved about what he said was you can use the mind, which is your ability to direct your attention, to rewire the brain to change your mind. So that the interplay between the mind and the brain, and having it rooted in science and a little bit of small s spirituality, I guess, put it that way, non-ideological spirituality, sense of wholeness and integration and those kinds of things. It was just really good news. I remember sitting in there going, I think I can work for the next 10 years. I think maybe I can do this. And it wasn't just my job. It was really some tools that I could use that were new, that I could practice on myself. And I mean, I have to tell you, I was in such a state of desperation that I would try anything. And they were fairly simple things to try. And so, especially the promise that you can rewire your brain in 90 days. I thought, damn, I am doing that one. And that was actually my first talk in School of Life, was how to rewire your brain in 90 days. And we can talk about that again if you want. But since then, I've been a mindfulness evangelist and really trying to talk about with people in my practice particularly, the benefits of mindfulness. Now, since 2011, it's everywhere, right? And raise your hand if you're tired of hearing about it, if you're sick of it, because it's kind of saturated the culture now, and I'm finding it a harder sell than it used to be. And so and when I start nagging people, I hate to be nagged, but I've been nagging my clients and nagging people, and I think the first whole year of School of Life, I was basically nagging people. Are you meditating? Are you meditating? Are you really meditating? Because we can rewire your brain in 90 days. So you need to meditate. No excuses, meditate, blah, blah, blah. And now, when I try to introduce the concept of mindfulness, people, here's what I hear. And tell me if you relate. I tried that. I just can't, I don't know, my mind just won't settle down. Like, I can't clear my mind. I don't know how to clear my mind. I don't know what to do. Or I have ADD. I can't really do that. And or I know I really need to be meditating. When I say mindfulness, they automatically equate mindfulness with meditation. And meditation is hard. It's hard. It really is hard. That's true. And I was so desperate, I just learned how to do it. I had actually been meditating for quite a long while, but mindfulness meditation is a little bit different. It's a little more, it gives you a little more to grab onto, and it was a little bit easier, and I was desperate, so I did do it every day for 90 days, and I felt like it really made a shift in my brain. So anyway, I was a true believer, and I really still am a true believer, but here we are here now, 2017, and we are in School of Life, and we are in our 5th year. And so we like to think that we are in grad school now, in your 5th year, right? Well, confession number 1 is I pretty much gave you everything I know in the last 4 years. I'm not sure there's any really great ideas, but the second thing is, we have layers now of misinformation and odd things that are interfering with the things that we know. That's number 1. Number 2 is we have this thing in our brain that thinks that if we've heard about it or if we've read about it, that we actually know it and we actually have a handle on it. Because this is how we're trained. Information is everything. Once we understand something, that's all we need. And this is why you'll beat yourself up when you say, but I know this, but I know this. How come I can't get it from my head to my heart? All of these things that we say. It's there because of the tricky mind and the way we're trained. And the third thing is that reminding ourselves of these very, very basic and life-changing concepts and talking about them and stirring them up really does help. So we are going to talk a little bit more about mindfulness just as a perspective setting platform. So if you would be so kind as to think about what is it that comes to your mind when you think of mindfulness, and how it makes you feel when you think about mindfulness, and then just jump in.
The first thing that comes to mind is just noticing.
Yeah, noticing.
So, seeing things that I normally wouldn't see.
Anybody just go, God, not this again, or feel guilty? Do Do you feel guilty when it comes up, or do you feel intrigued when it comes up? Do you even notice how you feel when it comes up?
Well, can you give an example? Like, what would be?
What is mindfulness anyway? What do I always say mindfulness is?
I have no idea.
Okay. Mindfulness, the definition of mindfulness is, and here we go into non-mindfulness when I tell you this. Here's the thing that is driving me a little crazy right now, is that what I do and what my goal is here is a little bit tricky, because what I end up doing is talking a lot about things, and what I really want to do is practice some things. And so defining something is a way to kind of codify it and tuck it away. Because this is what information does. You know what I'm saying? So once we understand something, we think we know it, then we tuck it away, and then we're like, why am I still suffering? So anyway, mindfulness is the practice of being fully present inside your body, inside yourself, I should say. It's more than just your body, but inside yourself, in the present moment, in a non-judgmental way. So you want to be in your body, or in yourself, in the present, and in a different attitude than we normally have. And so a non-judgmental way means that we are not making assessments all the time. And but I don't know how helpful that definition is. Because we're like, oh yeah, I understand what those things mean. I understand but the question I want to, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow, but I was just thinking as you're talking, it reminds me a lot of like just being childlike.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as like a concrete, looking at, okay, how does a child act? They're not continually analyzing what they're just kind of, I mean, my kids, like they notice every little thing. I think about myself when I was a kid, just sitting out in the forest for hours and just,
Yeah.
not feeling like I was wasting time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's very much like being a child. And I guess I'm taking a long time to just get to what I want to say, which is we need to not just understand what mindfulness is, we need to know how it feels. We need to know the experience of it. Otherwise, it's just another concept, right? And so here's what I'm struggling with, I guess, a little bit, is the way we normally know things is we take in information, and the mood of it, sometimes it's kind of exhilarating, like if you're learning something new, sometimes there's an aha, sometimes there's a sense of wow, there can be that's kind of the best it gets. I'll just go aha. But a lot of times it doesn't move us at all. Like if you're learning about stuff, and I watch this happen when I'm talking, when I'm losing you, I can tell. You're like, and when you're engaged, I can tell because you're present. So information, sometimes you're lucky if you get an aha, and this is what we live for if we're mind people. But we want to know how it works. We like definitions. We like concepts. We like steps. What else? I mean, it doesn't really matter. You know what that feels like. But think about how this feels when you're there. There's a certain amount of calmness. There's a certain amount of security. So there's a certain amount of, sometimes it's hopefulness. Like when you learn something new, you can kind of have a mood of hopefulness. But this kind of learning is about control and mastery. And the mind, the part of our mind that does that, that's used to doing that, it really wants to have it all sewn up. Because it's motivated by the need to be secure, the need to be secure, and the need to predict things. This is how we make stuff happen. And this is what science is all about. This is what a lot of different things are about. Control, mastery, and prediction. This is how you get ahead in life. And we are so steeped in this that we have become sick, actually. And we have to then define and talk about and analyze something as simple as childlikeness or mindfulness. And so, in order to get mindfulness, and we need to experience it, and we need to be able to feel it, and we need to be able to contrast how it feels when you're being mindful or being present. I should say how presence feels versus how non-presence feels. Because non-presence feels normal. If you're like me, some personality types are maybe more present than others. Mine is like the least present of all of the Enneagram types anyway. Just this sense of buffer and this sense of distance and this sense of like wanting to just be floating in a cloud of tranquility. And so part of the reason why I harp on it so much is because I really need to experience this, and I don't want to be alone. So I want to drag you all in it with me. So anyway, if we're trying to predict, control, and master, then the attitude or the state of being that we want to be able to experience is curiosity. That's one. Wonder and sensation. And
Openness.
yeah, openness. Two N's, openness. So today, when we're practicing our practices, I want you to tell your thinking brain that we're going to be shifting gears so that we can approach whatever the exercises that we're going to do with an attitude of curiosity and wonder. Maybe wonder has a little bit of judgment in it. Wonder is like, oh my God, this is wonderful. Sometimes, but it's just an openness and a focus on the sensations that might be coming to you, because what we want is experience. We want to go into the part of the brain that is all about experience. So we're actually moving around in different parts of the brain. When we're dealing with information, when you're sitting here listening to me, you're probably mostly in your left brain, where things are linear and logical, conceptual, material, logical. And that's all well and good. But what we want to do is create an environment where you can go into a whole different part of your brain. So we really want to travel out of there and into the part of your brain where you are in touch with and waking up the experiential part of your brain. And so that's the setup. And in doing the exercises, I want to remind you, I'm mostly just talking to all of your risk manager and all of your little gatekeepers, that we can actually give ourselves to this and be okay just for a little while. Like just for a little while, we're going to try these things, and we're going to ask you to step back, and then we're going to ask another part of your brain to come forward. And, you probably won't die. Or, put yourself in danger in any way. And if you do, if you feel that way, then you can just say, well, just come back and tell me, let me know you're scared, and we'll notice. Okay, I'm a little bit discombobulated here. So, noticing, did I already put that in?
You took it away.
Noticing is a good word, because that implies all we're doing is touching something lightly. We're noticing something, and we're not labeling it necessarily. We're not evaluating it. we're not judging it, and we're certainly not judging ourselves for judging it or not noticing it or whatever. But I want you to be aware, as we're doing some of the mindfulness exercises, that just kind of put a microphone on this part of your brain, and just notice that it's going to be there. You don't have to do anything with it. You don't have to conquer it, but just kind of notice, and notice how many, if it's verbal, notice how many layers might be there of nonverbal meaning in thoughts, attitudes, those kinds of things. Just notice that. Because we really spend most of our time trying not to be present. And we do that. Why? Why do we do that? Why do we do that? Control, did you say? Yeah,
I think we're very reactive.
yeah.
So there's stimulus and then response and stimulus response, and we're chasing and chasing rather than like listening to like the space between the stimulus and response, which I think is a more present place.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Yeah, it's true. Yeah, yeah. You want to? Yeah, we're just so automatic. We really are on automatic pilot, and we feel most comfortable when we are just doing that. Like we're taking in information, we're taking action, we're being stimulated, we're deciding what to do, we're making things happen, and also being present is very. It can be detached, or it can be actually very engaged as well. Like if you're present, you can be observing, but you're also very open and very vulnerable. It increases our sense of vulnerability if we are not judging things. If we're just like open to people and experiencing people, to anything that might come our way, we're just kind of going, oh, here comes this. I wonder what that's going to be like. You know, we could be sideswiped at any time, or bewildered, or caught blindsided is the word I was looking for, at any time. And we have had a lifetime of those things. In fact, you've heard me say this many times, childhood, becoming an adult, is one series of blindsidedness after another, you know, because children are just open, they're being what they are, and they're either getting in danger, or they're getting into trouble, or they're not using words correctly, or they're, you know, eating with their mouth open, or they're, you know, experimenting in unusual ways with their food, or with other substances that, you know, don't do well on the wall. And so, you know, the whole act of growing up is learning how not to be open and in the moment. Right? We learn how to dress, we learn how to do math, we learn how to do these things. So when we're talking about mindfulness, the reason why it's so revolutionary is because we spent our whole lives not being mindful, and now they're telling us we have to be mindful again. Anyway.
I think too, being present feels like sort of stopping. And in the way I live my life, I'm always going, because there's always one more thing to do, one more errand to run, one more person to meet with, whatever it is. And so it feels like it's working against your
Yes.
flow of getting stuff done. Like I don't
Yes.
have time to just stop.
Oh my gosh.
Even if it's like for a second to notice the beauty, or to notice a song, to really focus on it. It's like my head's still like, but I got to get to Walmart. You know,
Yeah.
like, so you're just in that.
Yeah, it gets in the way. It keeps us from getting stuff done. It takes time. Hope?
I was going to say that I like the stimulus response, and that I think one reason why people tend to not feel meditation is workable or useful, in that we think that stimulus is always external, but a lot of the stimulus that captures our mind and thought is actually internal, and that's what rises to the surface when we first start meditating. And so if our goal in meditation is quiet mind right off the bat, we're going to feel like we're failing at it. because of all that internal stimulus that comes up initially that we then react to and create layers about. And the other thing I wanted to say, and I was talking to Shannon about this earlier, when I first started studying mindfulness, the homework assignment was to cut an apple.
Yeah.
And to actually record, you were talking about the making a recording, but to record train of thought while I was cutting the apple. And it was all over the flippin' place, from where's my daughter to the everything. And then what it eventually becomes through practice is the knife in my hand, the apple, the feeling, the smell of the juice. It becomes this whole holistic experience that, and the reaction to the stimulus of cutting the apple is just cutting the apple. So it just really distills down to that one thing.
Yes.
Which I never could get to, but.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said that. You said it so much better than I was going to say. And I hope if you listen to the tape, you can rewind. I wish I could just rewind everything that you just said, because we're not used to thinking that way. And connecting the dots to what you just said, we think we have so many more important things to do. And what the hell does cutting a freaking apple have to do with my bills that I have to pay or my relationship that's falling apart? So we have this sense of urgency about important things. And so when one of the big hindrances to wanting to practice mindfulness is that we are taking a break from really important things to really unimportant things. And we can't connect the dots in our minds between learning how to cut an apple and what I'm going to do about my job, for God's sake. And so we have all of this stuff that's running that has to do with prediction, control, and mastery, fear, and fear, and fear. And we're being asked to do these stupid things. And so it's a hard sell, mostly for that reason, because I can stand here and tell you that if you spend every day doing a cutting the apple meditation, it will help you in 3 months with what you're going to do with your job, or how you're going to, and if you can learn to do it maybe more than once a day, then you really are going to benefit yourself, even if you don't know the connection between those things and what your goals are. So that's part of why I talk about it the way I do, because I want to convince that part of your brain, just give it a chance, just try it, yeah.
So, I've heard this expression of living in the tension, and the tension is what happens between what you think you need to do and getting it accomplished. It's that stress, that tension of getting there. So being mindful, you have to be willing to live in the tension.
Yes.
And in that in-between space, kind of the stimulus response, and be comfortable there and notice it's part of the process.
Yeah. Yeah, to tolerate things that we don't think we can tolerate. And that's why we skip over them. That's why we frantically do things, because we don't like this unfamiliar, this scary place, this vulnerable openness, this, oh my God, my stomach is in knots. And I'm going to just sit here with the knots in my stomach and not try to fix them for 2 minutes. I can't do that. There's just this real underlying terror that goes along with it. If we don't understand the terror, then we're not going to understand why we're not getting anywhere. And partly I'm here to tell you that it really is worth it. And I don't want you to have to get to the point where you feel desperate and completely broken and completely hopeless, like I was, and like, well, I might as well try this thing because nothing else works. And I swear to you, I have tried everything. I swear to you. And maybe I can't prevent you from doing that. I know that there are some things that only breakdown can do. But I would love to save you the trouble if I could. Yes. I wish someone had saved me the trouble. See, that's...
What's very comical is
Hope and I, before we got started, she noticed a bump on my head,
Oh,
a scab thing, and asked me about it. And it's totally about mindfulness.
really?
She's like, you weren't being mindful in that moment. So we sold our car, and so I was cleaning the car, you know, I was doing the leather, I was doing the windows, you know, I was present in those moments. But next to the car is our RV that we live in. Our RV has some slide outs.
Oh,
Those slide outs, if you're looking down at the ground, you can run into them. And I got so focused on productivity and getting something done, getting this project done, like I lost the being in the moment, and smack dab and just right in the corner. And it literally stopped me in my tracks because I had to stop because literally my bell was rung.
and I was hearing ding, 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 ding.
Oh, I'm bleeding. Okay, I have to stop.
Yeah, yeah.
And we were joking.
Okay.
A moment of
Yeah.
mindfulness.
Oh my gosh. And I got a million of those. And I mean, I probably have 3 just this morning. Not bumping my head, but reshaving my legs because I couldn't remember if I did or didn't. Did I brush my teeth? Did I use conditioner? You know, I don't know. I better do it again, you know. This happens to me every day. So, okay, is that enough of that? I'm sorry it wasn't very organized, but that's enough of talking about it. Are you ready to do some practices, or is there something you're really wondering about, or something that you're really confused about, or mad about, or yes?
One thought I had when you asked about what do we think about when you say mindful, what occurred to me, it may not be, you know, Webster's version, but when I think of mindful, I think of you just doing it mindfully, just very left brainish, without any emotion. So
Okay.
it's all just very intellectual versus with emotion.
It kind of, so you're saying it sounds like, mindfulness sounds like you're manipulating it with your mind, like you're paying attention without emotions, that you really are just going through step by step. And so it's kind of like a bad title, or, you know, bad word, right? Because it kind of almost implies, I'm thinking about this, when really it's almost the opposite in that it's, you're experiencing it, not necessarily thinking it. So yeah, I think that's well put. Anybody else?
I was just thinking, I don't know if all I can realize is that sometimes when there's a lot going on and I just can't think about it, I really don't think about it, and I'm just cutting the apple, which might be good, but I always thought it's been really bad because I'm ignoring reality.
Yeah, ignoring reality.
So it makes me feel like I'm being unhealthy, just cutting the apple and doing that. So it feels a little like I'm being naughty or
Yeah.
guilty.
Yeah, irresponsible, naughty, yes. I think that is one of the huge hurdles that we have to get over when that's happening, because a lot of it had to do with some of the psychological things that we were taught, and some in the recovery community. Like, if you're not dealing with your pain, then you're in denial, right? It's either or. Does that resonate with anybody? You know, so you have to kind of be in it, and you can be in it in a way that notices, or you can be in it in a way that you're just working it all the time, and you're not realizing these other layers that it's steeped in, like shame and peer pressure and conforming and doing it right, and all of these things you can suffer, and you can be in your pain, and you can do it in a way that doesn't help you at all, because you're just reinforcing it by spending all your time there and rehashing it and analyzing it and looking for ways you could do it better or different or whatever. And we're kind of taught that that's the way we do it, mostly by example. And so if you feel overwhelmed, or you're in some sadness, or you're stressed out or something, and you take time to just cut the apple or wash the dishes, it feels like, am I just taking myself out of reality and putting myself into something that doesn't really matter? And am I escaping? Am I running away from the real issues? That's just another aspect of the fear You know what I'm saying? Because we don't want to be irresponsible. We want to make sure we're dealing with things. It's just that after a point, that way of dealing with things ends up being part of the problem. And the inability to be present in a different way keeps you from actually achieving the thing that you are looking for, like happiness or peacefulness or better relationships or whatever, because we don't have this other skill. And so you learn the skill by learning how to cut the apple or do the dishes or be present when you're blah, blah, blah. So, yeah.
Just real quick, I think part of what's helped me in this mindfulness process to move from like guilt and shame that I'm not doing it to like actually hopeful and kind of excited was, I think, letting go of the I have to meditate every day
Yes.
thing.
Thank you. That was my next
'cause
point.
I think it triggered some of that. You have to have a quiet time back in my Christian days or whatever. And once I read some book by some Chinese Buddhist who I can't pronounce his name. It has the word presence in it. Anyway, it was just about being mindful in the moment.
Yes.
And kind of like the apple thing, but like during the day to notice beauty or to notice a song or to notice things, kind of stripped away that like, oh, I didn't sit for half an hour and do this thing, and it felt much more freeing than shaming.
Yeah. Yeah. So because meditation has a lot of that stuff on it, I have shifted to a different type of meditation, which is actually more contemplative, which means that you just focus your attention on things rather than try to clear your mind. And so, so I'm going to just start doing some of these exercises with you. And there's actually a PDF that I got this from that I will post on the Facebook page group because, of course, I didn't plan enough to print out enough copies for everyone. But it is, anyway, it'll be on the website, but it comes from a man named Alfred James at a website called pocketmindfulness.com. Mindfulness made easy. Mindfulness in 3 easy steps. Mindfulness mindfulness for dummies. Yeah. Okay, so are you ready? Anybody else just can't move on till we settle something. Okay, so the thing that I liked about this guy was that he had 6 different practices that you can try. And I always like it when there's, practical things that you can try. Steps, they're actually not steps, they're just exercises, but yes. So the first one we're going to do, and you're probably tired of this one too, is breathing. So you already know how to do this, so let's do it. Just get comfortable. I don't care if you open your eyes, close your eyes, whatever. Mindful breathing. We do breathing because it's one of those things where you can either do mindfully or mindlessly. That's the cool thing about breathing. If you forget to breathe, your body will breathe for you. And so you can experience the difference between being breathed by your body or breathing on purpose. And so when you breathe on purpose, it's kind of like having a conversation with that part of your body. And everybody has to breathe, so it doesn't cost anything, and you don't have to think about it, but I'm going to make you think about it. So if you're ready, what I want you to do is, of course, take a breath in, however you want, deep or not. Take about 3 of those without having to think about it too much. Okay, and now in the next breath that you take, I want you to notice the temperature of the air inside your nose on the back of your throat. Just notice the temperature. And when you breathe out, notice the temperature. And while you're experiencing the temperature of the air. Let yourself experience it. So the coolness inside the membranes of your nose or on the back of your throat. And when you exhale, notice how your body warmed that air up. And as you're exhaling it, it's warmer. Keep breathing. This time as you inhale, notice the sound. Notice if you can hear the breath as it goes in. And how it sounds when it goes out. Next, I just want you to notice the volume of the air as it comes in. Are you taking a big breath? Are you taking a shallow breath? Just notice the kind of breath you're taking. And the next thing I want you to notice, I want you to take maybe 10 breaths. And while you're doing, you don't have to count them, but I'm just warning you, it'll be several breaths. We'll be in silence. Breathe however you'd like. Focus on the sound, the texture, the volume, the temperature, the sound. And while you're doing that, without letting that go, see if you can notice the noise of your thoughts. See if you can notice the chatter. Whether you're thinking about the future, or what do you have to do today, or how dumb it feels, or how you wish you wore in those other pants, or whatever. Just notice. And if you get caught up in those thoughts, just return to the sound of your voice or the temperature of the, not your voice, the sound of the breath or the temperature of the breath. Very good. You can open your eyes, and now, before we move on, just notice, if you can, the difference in how you feel now versus when you started, if you remember. And just notice. If you didn't feel anything, notice if you feel stupid that you didn't feel anything. Notice if you suddenly went, I was supposed to feel something, it's supposed to feel different. You know, those kinds of things. That's part of the chatter that we just want to, get used to.
I feel a little more grounded in my spot, like physically.
Yeah, I mean, it's very grounding. And the difference in the room is just amazing. And standing up here just watching the shift happen to you is that's why we love breathing as the first one, the easiest one. Everybody has to breathe, right? So breathing is number one. Anything else you want to share about breathing? Yeah.
Well, you asked what the chatter was.
Uh-huh.
I have a new business idea, but that's how my mind works.
Really? Ooh, that's nice. That's nice.
It had to do with breathing classes, actually.
Oh. don't you think it's weird we have to have breathing classes? Like we have to stand up here and teach you how to breathe. Isn't that weird?
No, I had a guy once, he kept wanting me to bring in a breathing therapist. I'm like, that was in Nashville. Now I understand.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's the breathing exercise. And like I said, this will be on the website, but these are 6 exercises. Excuse me now, where did I put my other? Number 2, so mindful breathing is number 1. The second one we're going to do is called, this should be mindful breathing. Mindful. The second one is observation, mindful observation. And this is more what Marty, I think, was talking about. So in this exercise, I would like you to, right now, just pick an object in the room. Probably better if it's an object than a person, because they might get a little freaked out if you're looking at the person. So just pick it right now, and promise me you won't change. That's all I'm asking. And we are going to spend, there's no second hand on that clock, so let me do it. I don't want you thinking about time. It's okay. I'll do it somehow. I'll figure it out. And ready? All I want you to do is experience the object that you picked. Okay? So this is like hyper noticing, and I want you, so you can notice the shape of it, the texture of it. You can notice the light on it. You can notice the color of it. You can notice how it affects you. You can notice the lines on it. So you get what I'm talking about, right? That some of us need help with a menu. Like, how do I notice? What am I paying attention to? But we're going to give you a whole minute to just look and experience this object with an attitude of curiosity, not judgment or evaluation. Okay? Curiosity and openness. Ready? Go. Sorry. Okay, that was actually a little more than a minute, but I'm going to give you another minute. And just like we did with the breathing, I want you to stay focused on your object. And at the same time you're studying or noticing your object, open your awareness to the rest of your brain, like to whatever chatter or noise or sensation might be there. Okay? I'm curious what your experiences was, or who wants to share what you picked and what you noticed. Hope.
I picked the basket under the table, just because it was the first thing I saw when you asked us to pick something. And it's really very interesting, way more than I would have noticed before. But when I started thinking, when I had my thoughts about it, my first thought was that I was frustrated because I wanted to touch it and feel it as part of the sensation, and I was afraid to get out of my chair because that wasn't part of the assignment.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I picked the singing bowl there, and I just noticed how I actually wanted to go get it as well, and experience it that way. And then some of the chatter was, wait, Dawn's foot is right beyond the bowl there. You know, I was like, and then I saw, oh, there's a shinier thing just to the right of it. Maybe I should have picked that. And a lot of little things. And wondering how many other people picked the singing bowl thing. I bet a lot of people picked it because it's higher.
Well, I picked that stupid antenna thing, and I was like, oh, that was a really dumb thing. Okay. But then, once I really studied it, I was like, God, it has like a knob. It almost looks like a spire, like, you know, that little toy thing.
A
Is
spirograph
that a
thing?
handle?
Or-
What happens to those things? Like, I had a million questions about it once I actually studied it. And I'm like, that is actually kind of a really cool thing. What else can you pick up with it? You know, whatever else. But then when I let my mind go crazy, it wasn't as satisfying, you know, because then I don't know, it was all over the place.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Anybody? Because I'm going to, and remind me to get back to. I want to comment.
Ted, is that the singing bowl? Is that what
With the
this is?
stick in it, yeah.
Okay. See, because that was what I picked too, but I thought it was a mortar and pestle. Like,
Oh, okay.
and so I was thinking about, you know, it's probably there to represent healing or something like that. And then I started getting all the, and I started feeling kind of self-righteous, like, oh, I don't know, just like, how many other people in the world aren't doing an exercise like this? So, it's good that I actually didn't even know what it was.
You ignorant person! My God! Annie?
I chose the antenna too, and at first I'm just like, oh, that handle might be kind of crooked, and I wonder why they didn't put it in the ceiling and stuff. And then when we could really let our mind go, I was like, oh my gosh, why did they put it there? You know, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm being judgmental, I'm doing the wrong thing. And then I was just like, I can't even observe without being judgy. You know, and it's
Flunk.
like,
Yeah. Yeah, we give ourselves a grade and I flunked mindfulness today. Yeah.
You were judging your judging.
I was totally judging my judging that it wasn't right.
Well, I was really prideful and proud of myself.
Good.
So that's the feeling I had. As a two, I did it really well. Yeah, I looked at the silver thing and I went through kind of like how it was so circular, and my chatter, the reason I was proud of myself was I felt like my chatter was still centered on my object. So it didn't feel like a bad pride, but it could have been. But if I was like kind of, as I was thinking about it, I'm like, as I'm trying to hear my chatter is still centered on my object. A+. I did Everybody proud of me?
Yes, we think you are the honor student. Okay, great. Well, I mean, you gotta get what I mean, right? We try, but we really can't pull it off. Because, well, and that's okay. It's not like a succeed or fail thing either. It's just notice what happens. And if we want to make the shift into the part of your brain that's not the left brain thinker, then there's a lot of just plain object gazing that we can be doing. And the more you do it, then the more you you start to notice, and the reason I wanted to come back to you, Kelly, is you kind of illustrated the difference that I'm hoping people can begin to experience. So when you were analyzing it, like when you first were observing it, and then you shifted into, oh, it's got a knob and it's got those other things. I could tell that your feeling shifted, your emotion shifted into, more like wonder, more like curiosity, more like openness, more like, And that whole feeling state was a shift that you experienced when you just allowed yourself to see the thing for the first time without categorizing the thing or without trying to get meaning out of the thing. Now, I'll stand here and stamp my feet and go, we love meaning, we're addicted to meaning, we have to have meaning. Meaning is good, but it interferes with our ability to experience something for what it is. And it's not that the thing is that important, it's just the ability to shift into experiential mind is important to heal us from hyperthinking and overthinking and yada, 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 to being able to actually be present and experience the joy of just being. So this is what we're after. But if we don't know what that feels like because we can't actually be present with simple things, then it's really difficult for us to be present, all the time. Get it? Okay. Anybody else just have something they have to share?
I'm just curious, because it seems like a few years ago, learning the story of things was kind of a new doorway to thinking about things. And it seems like now detaching from story is a more spacious, less judgy, less analytical thing. And I don't know. I'm curious about if there's a relationship with story.
Yeah.
And when you mentioned meaning, attaching meaning, and how driven we are to do that, where story kind of relates with that.
Yeah, I think it's layers of awareness. So when you're learning the story about, I'm kind of bereft of an example, but when you focus on the story or the meaning of something, it is a layer of awareness, because a lot of times we just float through life and we're attracted to certain things or driven by certain things, but we miss why we're doing it, and it helps. So the story of something, maybe the story of our life or the story of our illness or the story of our relationship or something, it helps us step back and get perspective, right? And so that's one level of awareness, which is more than just living the story without noticing that you're conceptualizing it in some way. And I mean, not living it, but just being carried along by it without the ability to observe it. And so knowing the story is one way to observe it. And the only reason we want to observe it is so that we experience the part of ourself that is the observer. See, when we're just being carried off by life or caught in a story or just living life, then that's a one-dimensional way of being, and it can get us in, can cause all kinds of trouble. But part of the reason why we dial up the awareness is that we start to experience ourselves as apart from that. And there's an I there that is watching. There's an I there that is underneath all of everything that we've lost contact with. And the more that we experience like different parts of ourselves and different layers of awareness, is that we start to discover that underneath all of that, or above all of that, or around all of that, is actually the essential self, the part of us that knows, the part of us that is not controlled by our story, our circumstances, our sensations, all of that. And when you start to consider that idea, that's very exciting to me. And that's a lot of what I ended up talking about with the soul. The soul is the part of us that's kind of just there, always has been there. and we're too busy being all these other things or being caught up in all these other things that we lose touch with that. And wouldn't it be interesting to be more grounded in that? So anyway, let's get to some of these others. Okay, because there are 6 of them. Number 3 is always too small for me to read without my glasses. 3 is mindful awareness, which doesn't really mean anything. And I might come back to this because what I was gonna do is the body meditation, which I've done before with you guys, and I think it's really simple enough to do on your own. And if we have time, we'll do it. But like breathing, we have a body, we have breath and we have a body. And so mindful awareness you can do this very systematically. Start at one end of your body, go to the other end, and meditate on or think about, locate in space, and begin to feel and listen to different parts of your body. And there's so many different body parts that you could do this. You could do a different body meditation every day. But I was doing it the other day thinking, I'm just going to meditate on my feet. I like to start down there for some reason. And so then I was like, it's been I don't think I've ever really meditated on my toes. So then I locate my toes in space, and then I think about how they feel right now. And then I think about how I remember they looked this morning. And then I think about how the contact they're making with my sandals right now, and the temperature of my feet, and the shape of my toes. And you can look at them, or you can just locate them in your mind's eye. It's activating a certain part of your brain, and it's connecting with your body, and that's a very important neural connections to be made there. But we've done that, and that's really easy. So are you okay if we move on to the next one? Because of course I started too late. Okay, and this is where you get that. I don't know if you've heard this, but what are you going to do? Just sit around and contemplate your navel, right? Why don't you do that sometime? But when you are with your body, it's really a powerful meditation, not in meaning, because we're not trying to make meaning, and it will flush up a lot of meaning because you're like, oh, I hate my feet, or God's sake, please don't make me meditate on my belly, because that just brings up a lot of shame or whatever. But it's handy. You can do it any time. But also it does strengthen a particular connection between the important part of your brain and a very important part of another part of your brain, which is proprioception. It's like at least a quarter of your brain. And so as you're making that connection, as you practice that connection, you are actually building neurons between your prefrontal cortex and that part of your brain. And so you're amplifying your ability to take in information about your body and transfer it to your executive center of your brain. So it enhances and boosts your ability to listen to your body wisdom if you're doing that body meditation, even though you're not even thinking about trying to get meaning from your body during the body meditation. Does that make sense? So if you spend time so not just body parts, but also like your internal body parts. So your digestion, what does it feel like inside of me? And is there gurgling happening? Is there things shifting around? Do I feel full? Do I feel empty? Do I feel hungry? Can I hear my heartbeat? What about, just my regular senses? Anyway, very important part of the brain, and you can do that one at home. Okay, number 4 would be mindful listening. And so we're going to do 1 minute of just listening. And for this one's fairly easy. You can close your eyes if you'd like to. You don't have to. But for 1 minute, I'd like you to notice all of the things that you can hear. Ready, go. Okay, what was that like? How many had to count and make sure you had the most things that you could hear? I just thought about that when I started. I'm like, oh shoot, I hope I didn't make people gallop off into, what if I'm not listening? What if I'm not hearing enough things? That buzzing was kind of like,
That's like my absolute favorite because my house is never quiet. Sometimes I've been known to like go in my closet and close the door just because I need quiet for just a minute or two.
Yeah.
You know, just total silence. It's wonderful.
yeah. I like to do that one in the bathtub. And what I really like to hear is the underlying roar. So the buzz was really kind of dominating, but I could reach out and hear like the roar of traffic. That's our constant companion all the time, wherever you are usually, and how weird it feels when you're out in wilderness or when you're out in like the woods or something, and how strange and unsettling that can feel because we don't have that soundtrack of that industrial roar underneath us all the time. But I like that because it's surprising the things that we tune out, and then when we start to listen, just the layers of listening. Okay. The fifth exercise I want to do is immersion. Mindful immersion, and this one you can do at home too. That's like the cutting the apple, or doing the dishes, or sweeping the floor, or making the bed. You just immerse yourself in the small motions and all of the automatic things that we do when we're in that. And where's my little? I left him in the car. Shoot.
Is this something you want me to get for you?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, well, you go get the little bag of raisins. I don't know if this is mindful immersion or what it is, but and mindful eating is another one you can, I'll add it to the list, mindful eating, which is I'm really bad at. But it's kind of immersion because you're really experiencing every part of the thing that you're eating. It's really a good one. So I'll wait for that one, maybe. When he gets back, we'll do it. I'm going to this is the one I inserted. Mindful immersion, yeah. So think about washing the dishes. Doing something that you particularly don't like to do. Scrubbing the floor maybe, or I don't know. Do any of you have a particular thing you like to do, immerse yourself in when you're doing it? No one washes dishes anymore. So that's kind of a hard one. They use that one a lot, but cooking is real. Yeah, cooking is chopping, sautéing, baking, stirring. All of these things are repetitive motions and things we like to skip over so we can get to the food part. I have a really good friend who is really good at this. When she cooks, she kind of sets a whole sensory stage of like twinkle lights and music and quiet, and she just would prepare her meal with a certain sort of rhythm to it. And the reason she did it was because she was depressed. And the one way that she could kind of get rid of everybody was to make a really complicated meal for her family. So she learned how to, send her husband off with the kids and then do a very nurturing setup for the cooking. So there was music, and then there were lights, and then there was this, the concentration on every part of meal preparation was a way, she didn't even know she was practicing mindfulness, but it was a healing tool for her. So any of these things can be shifted like that. Yeah, Barb.
I have an elderly aunt, she's getting close to 90, and she was talking about technology and how it's so easy to wash your dishes and wash your clothes and get everything clean these days. And she says, I feel so sorry for you young people. When do you have time to think?
Yeah.
She says, I
Yeah.
did all my best thinking when I was wringing out the clothes and scrubbing the floors.
Yeah, it's true, and that's, I think it's part of why we get so jammed up. In gardening isn't it? Who likes to garden?
I was just gonna say, I have this little patch of crabgrass that I'm trying to get rid of, and so I call it my Zen crabgrass. Because I sit and you have to root out every blade, because there's no other way to get it
Yeah,
to go away.
yeah,
And I just, like, okay, this is what I'm doing.
yeah. So those are examples of immersion. I would like to try this mindful eating exercise with you. So if you will, take one raisin, please, and one raisin only from the bag. And those of you who are getting your raisins, you can start your mindfulness exercise by noticing how it feels as you're holding it in your hand, I guess. Oh, you got a clump.
Accidentally. I didn't mean to.
Well, it's my fault.
How is that your fault?
I don't know. It's just a... Shut up. Caught me apologizing.
Candle for Kathy.
It's okay. You can have two if it comes out too. It's not wrong to just have. It's my fault, so you're off the hook. So what we're going to do is eat this raisin. Did you get one, Kath?
Yeah.
Okay. And so when you're, and we're going to take a minute to do it. You can do it however you'd like, as long as you are closing your eyes and paying attention. So just by way of a menu of things you could be paying attention to is the shape, the temperature, the size, the texture, the taste, obviously, the smell. I want you to take a minute to relate to your raisin and to eat it whenever you feel like it. There's like no timing. If you want to just and then notice, you can. So, ready? Go. So kind of stay with your raisin, and I'm going to give you the number 6 that's on my list here, which is called Mindful Appreciation. And I want you to think about your raisin and appreciate it, all your experience of it, but then think about where it came from. And think about who might have grown it. And think about the process of getting that raisin from its original state to your mouth with an attitude of non-judgmentalism, but curiosity and appreciation. And do that for, just close your eyes and do that for the next minute. Okay, so those are 6 ways you can begin to practice really simple, non-meditative kinds of mindfulness, with a view to all of these benefits that mindfulness will bring you. So if you don't want to meditate, or you can't meditate, or you're avoiding meditating, or then try these. Try all 6 of them. Try one. Try 5 of them if you want. And start just as an experiment. Just start it, and then just notice how it feels before, how it feels after, and that kind of thing. So, any thoughts about the raisin experiment?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
It's such a powerful thing that they've proven scientifically, meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Would the same thing be true for mindfulness? And I only ask because I find that whole be still and be quiet, like that's so hard, but like this I love. Like, I mean, just what a joyful journey to see the grape on the vine in some gorgeous place, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
that was really fun to think about that. And then I don't like to think about it in the box on the ship or whatever. But, it gives your brain that's so busy something to focus on, being the breathing or the thing, and so that works better for me. But I wonder if they've done, like, does it work in the health
In the same way.
Do you think?
I think that it does, and I'm trying to. I don't know that I have the sources
Right.
on that. I do know that
But
remember
it's
that
real similar.
that seminar we went to on taking in the good. Remember that day?
Yeah, the Rick Hansen thing.
Rick Hansen thing.
Yeah.
I remember feeling really. Rick Hansen is another neuropsychologist who is very big on mindfulness and mindfulness-based interventions for health and wellness. And Kathy and I went to this seminar that he did, and I was confused about 2 different types of meditation, because there's the mantra meditation, like there's the intense focusing your mind on something, and then there's the opposite of that, which is the intensely trying to empty your mind of things. And so it's not exactly the same thing, but I did go up and ask him, and he said, no, they're very similar results for either kind of meditation. So I think that these kinds of things are more contemplative, they're more like contemplation, and having something to focus your mind on if you're experiencing it and not analyzing it, that's the key. Because if you can empty your mind, then you're in experiential mode. At least you're not in thinking mode. But if you are experiencing something like your raisin or your dishes or something, then the purpose is to get out of thinking, controlling, manipulative mind, and begin to strengthen this other way of experiencing and knowing. Yes, Hope.
I was just going to say that there's an app. It's free. It's called Insight Timer. There's several meditation apps, but that one is great because you can explore on it, and it will give you, and you can time it 5 minutes, 10 minutes, however long you want, and you can tell it that you want a guided meditation or a mindfulness meditation, although this is certainly enough to carry us through, but that way you know, it really depends on my mood, I find. Sometimes when I do a guided meditation, after a while, I find the guiding part of it intrusive. I just want them to shut up already. And I just, you know, I just want quiet. But then other times I'm really appreciating having that external guidance helping me to focus my mind. And that app gives you access to all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yes, meditate, you people. Come on, meditate. I'm talking to myself. Or the reason I like these is they're practice as you go. Everyone has to breathe. So breathe when you're sitting there. Breathe when you're driving. Breathe when you're in the shower. And just do it and notice how it feels and notice all of the things about it. And observation, you know, if you're sitting at your desk and you're looking at the little blinking light on your phone, you know, you can do that for a long, long time. Or of course, looking at beautiful things, you know, your garden or the mountains or something, also very good. But you can practice these things. And the thing that I most want to stress is that the shift happens only through practice. The only reason we understand it is so that you will convince yourself to practice. Okay? So practice is the only thing that counts. Anyway, you can do body meditation anytime, anywhere, before you go to bed if you want. You can do the listening meditation at any time. There's always noise happening. And all of those work. The eating, mindful eating, that's my next great frontier. So anyway, we can be done. I'm going to turn off the recorder and then I'll answer your questions.
I wanted to also just give, Kelly reminded me that she actually